Nice. Welcome to the Seahawkers podcast. I'm your host, Clinton Bonner today. Brandon Schultz, he is on a little vacation visiting some family. So we have a scrappy, happy hero pup of some great people with us. To my left, Mr. Adam Emmert. Adam, has it stopped snowing in May? It's now June. Has it stopped snowing in Montana for you Montanans quite yet? How's it doing up there, dude?
Hey, June is nice. It's actually, we got, I don't know, like a foot 2.5 weeks ago, but no more snow since then. It's been great. And it actually just kind of turned to summer, able to start planting out the gardens. It's pretty fun. Phil, I know you've been traveling around, so I don't know. You've probably been in 15 different weather climates to this point?
Yeah, I actually just drove right next to where you are going through Montana. I was down in Pagosa Springs, Colorado for some meetings, and then back to see my sister in Utah for a little bit. And then I drove almost just past Phillipsburg, coming up the 15 over on the way to the 90. Yeah, so it looked like the weather was awesome there in your neck of the woods as we traveled back this Monday.
That is awesome.
Weather's been awesome. And, the cool part about the beginning of June here is we start to get even more news about the team as, OTAs continue on and all that. Now, Clinton, I know that you had a couple news and notes you wanted to cover here first before we get into our most underhyped and overhyped Seahawks. Each of us have picks here.
I sure do. So yeah, that is tonight's topic, by the way. So we're going to be talking. This is Thursday Night Live. We're trying to do these on Thursdays, as the name suggests, as part of the Seahawkers Podcast Network. And of course, if you're out there, remember to like and subscribe, youtube.com/Seahawkers Podcast. And of course, patreon.com. So you can head out to Get in the Flock on Patreon, become a member of the Discord, become a member of the Ring of Honor. And for tonight's Overhyped and Underhyped, we reached out to Discord members and Ring of Honor members, and we'll be, talking about what their takes are as well. So we were happy to flock source some of that, and we will get into those overhyped and underhyped as these mandatory camps do wrap up. And with that, yeah, there is a bit of news, boys. So let's see. First, before we get into our overhyped and underhyped for our Seahawk players going into the year, how hyped or not are we about this news? So, Mr. Phil, I'll start with you on this one. We'd heard today Draymond Jones gets a restructuring. Okay, fine and all. That sounds great. The big juicy part, $7.4 million in cap space freed up. How hyped are you about that math?
Well, I'm a little more hyped about that one than what we heard with the Reed contract, which seems like a lot of shuffling for nothing. This one frees us up to where we don't have to be so concerned when something does take place, or maybe a great opportunity comes along. Schneider has a little cash to play with. It still works out just fine for Mr. Jones. He gets paid. In fact, he gets paid early, and you want your money as fast as you can right now. So I'm happy for him. I'm sure he was hyped. I'm not crazy hyped. It's not, now we're going to win because John has another 7 million to play with, 7.5 million. But it makes me feel a little bit better that he's not tied up against it.
Yeah, I heard we had 1.1 million or so as of yesterday, and now that's 8.5 million. So, Adam, how about those millions?
Well, when you're talking in millions, it always seems like more millions is better than less millions. So this seems like a good thing for this year. And I think Phil kind of hit it on the head with everything that he kind of put on that. And just in terms of not a huge deal one way or the other, but nice to have a little stash in the bank there just in case, a rainy day fund.
Yeah, okay. So that's hype number one. Remember, we will do our most over and underhyped Seahawks, but there was some Seahawks news since we are getting through 2 days of the mandatory mini camp here. Second bit of news, I think we all heard the Leo Williams interview, if you will, or presser. And Leo comes out there, Adam, and tells the world, just blowing it all out there that, hey, he's like, yeah, McDonald's got me playing basically 6 different positions and this idea of these pressure stations. What'd you think of Leo, Adam, coming out and telling everybody, look, this guy's a mad scientist?
Yeah, you've been hearing it across the board from all the defensive players. And I mean, even heard Byron Murphy talking about wanting to get a pick this year because he's going to be dropping into coverage now and then. And it's going to be interesting to see how it all comes together. I mean, one of the big words of, OTAs and now mini camp and all that, when you hear these interviews with the players and the coaches, has been the word multiple when it comes to the defense. And we heard that a lot from Clint Hurt too, but this sounds like it is sincerely creative. And, Leo sounded fired up to be able to kind of go out there and do some other things. But it was made clear that he does like having his hand in the dirt and just being able to pin his ears back and go after the quarterback rather than being in a 2-point stance. But it should be interesting. It sounds like they're going to get a lot of different things out of a lot of different guys this year, Phil.
It looks like we're cranking up the hype train a little bit. The first one was kind of like, yeah, I'm so hyped. I mean, I'm listening to that. We got some cap space. This one I'm kind of hyped about, but not because I'm surprised. This is what we wanted when we went after Mike Macdonald. Coach Mike, that's what we saw. I mean, I loved everything I saw from his Ravens in the playoffs last year and how they handled things. It was so cool to kind of just try to guess, where is he going to bring the action from? How is he going to put the quarterback in a bind? I just loved almost every snap watching the defense work. And as I watched that, I mean, my teeter-totter of what other quarterbacks I want just went to the floor, and Mike went right to the top as I watched him. And so now to hear Leo's perspective, not only as a defensive lineman to describe it a little bit, but to see the kind of the excitement that you looking in his eyes, but also hearing his voice, I think the guys are going to be able to get it. I think it gives them some options, and, you know, getting the quarterback confused, his job's already the hardest in sports. Making it more confused is going to be so fun. I'm hyped about this one.
Yeah, I am as well. And it kind of goes for me along with what McDonald has been preaching, I think, hiring for and drafting for and free agency for, which is high character, high intelligence. He's like, look, this is not an easy system. This is not, you go up, line up and beat them. Hopefully it's lots of beat them, but they're doing it in different ways that make it seem multiple, hopefully to confuse. And when we look across the NFL, fellas, the bottom line still is there's a smattering, maybe 15 or so high caliber quarterbacks, and it kind of goes off a cliff into like, okay, mediocre, and then into like pretty bad starting quarterbacks still. I mean, heck, this is non-Seahawk news. Trevor Lawrence got $55 million a year today for 5 years, the largest contract ever, $275 million. I think Trevor Lawrence can play ball and has a lot of time to live up to all that potential coming out of Clemson and all that. With that, though, I wouldn't even put him in the top 15. I think McDonald can confuse the crap out of him, Adam.
Ooh, Lawrence in the top 15. Depends on what year you're going off of, right? Last year wasn't nearly as good as maybe the year previous, and where you saw some of those flashes of that franchise dude. It is interesting to watch these quarterbacks every time they come up, be like, oh, well, now he's got to be the highest paid ever. And
right.
I can't understand it for the life of me. Like, why can't you offer Trevor Lawrence $45 million? And then when he says no and goes out and, plays another year, and if he has a year like last year, do you think his value to every other team is going to be $55 million? Like when you're competing to try to bring him back on that next contract? I doubt it. One of these teams is going to have to finally, kind of grow a pair here and, kind of put a line in the sand with some of these young quarterbacks when it comes to the fact that, all right, it's been up and down since you've gotten the league. It hasn't been just a steady ascent to awesome, and you're now the, one of the top 5 dudes in the league. Because I just don't think that's where he's at now. Now, on the flip side, get it done early. It's only going to be more expensive next year in some terms, and the year after that, and all that. So I don't know. It's interesting, but you do see Mike being the guy that does seem to take these high-level quarterbacks and high-level offensive coordinators and put them in a pickle. And I love the idea of him being the defensive Sean McVay. I can't wait for him to play the Rams. It's going to be a lot of fun, Phil.
Yeah, it is. And I'd say the most overhyped thing in sports is probably young quarterbacks' second contract, like their first negotiated contract after their one that they get from being drafted. I don't know if hyped is quite the right word, but it's a close brother to what we're talking about. It blows my mind a guy hasn't gone out and really done it yet, and yet just because he shows potential, we got to make him the highest paid. Can't they fit him into the shelf of closer to what he has been and what he could be, and not just all of what we hope he might be. It baffles me that these GMs can't get together and figure this thing out, because that's going to hamstring them unless he's awesome. I mean, he really needs to be top 5 soon, and I don't know if he can. There's less than a coin flip that he will be top 5 ever. I mean,
Yeah.
potential, yeah, but I don't understand how this keeps going this way. Some of these genius general managers that get paid big bucks on their own are allowing it and pushing it on one another. It's weird to me.
Yeah, well, when Daniel Jones got 40 million a year, the proverbial dam broke on that one. So to see Lawrence get 55 million, by the way, just makes Geno Smith's contract that much more amazing for a really solid NFL quarterback. I'll tell you, boys, something. We got one more before we get to our Seahawks over and underhyped. But before we do that, something that is never ever underhyped. Someone that's never underhyped. We got Gambling Goat with a $4.99 super chat saying, just stopping by to give you guys some money. We'll listen to it work tonight. We'll listen to work. Thanks, fellas, and go Hawks. GG, we love you, dude. That's amazing. Thank you for doing that. Mighty kind of you. And I hope as you're listening to this overnight, it provides you a little bit of comfort, a little bit of chuckles, and just some of that great hawkery we like to spread. So, guys, I got one more. I'll go to you first, Mr. Phil. Maybe we had a hype sandwich that the middle one with Leo was the most hype. But how about the fact that McDonald gives the boys the third day off? Supposed to be a third day of mandatory minicamp. He goes 2 out of 3 ain't bad, full meatloaf style, and says, you know what? I've seen enough. You guys are looking good. Installs are looking good. Take the day. Go enjoy the summer. Don't ever change. Sign the yearbooks. What do you think about that, Mr. Phil?
Well, Clinton, I feel like you're coming from the hype room. I'm not sure if that's like dance party getting ready to happen. You're going to bring in everybody, get them hyped to go out and win. I'm not totally sure what that room is, but I would be hyped if I was
limo.
one of the Seahawks.
This is my limo. I'm in I'm in a very smooth limousine. It's like a 1988 Lincoln Continental, and I have a couple of cold Zimas back here. It's great. It's great. It's great.
You're rolling through Brooklyn right now as we're doing the pod, I think, and yep. Okay.
Absolutely.
I am amazed that coaches would do this. I guess you're buying more goodwill. You feel like, hey, they've done everything that I've shown them. I've got confidence. It's kind of like, I guess you're buying trust, and the currency you're using is a little more opportunity to kind of dial and tweak things in. You feel like, hey, I can get more out of these guys being happy with me and believing in me and me showing approval of their efforts than I will from just a few little more tweaks. And so I trust that he had a right way of doing it. I think it'd be hard for me as a coach. You get so few opportunities to have these guys to give that up. He must be very pleased.
Yeah. What do you think, Adam?
Well, that was my initial impression, right? And the long and short of it is none of us have any freaking clue. But if you're trying to think about it logically, that's definitely one logical way to look at it. Another might be, because I was just trying to think of, okay, what would the other possible reasons that maybe aren't so rosy maybe look like? Not that I believe any of these are true, just for sake of debate. Like maybe after 2 days of mandatory camp, Mike was like, you know what? Me and the coaches need to regroup for an extra day and iron out a couple of these little wrinkles for the next time that we get on the field. And that way we can be more effective at that point. Or, maybe the guys are not quite in the shape that they want them to be in. And, they all just are a little gassed. And he's like, you know what? They could probably just use the day off. Like if I was going to try to find a less than, man, they're just ahead of schedule and crushing it type reasons. Those are two that popped into my head. Not that I have any idea if that's true or not.
But to take the other side of it and say, well, what could cause that? And there's one other bonus piece of news, maybe a little Brandon in his honor, and maybe the reason too that they did settle at last day or so that they are going to have a couple of joint practices with the Tennessee Titans this year. Something Pete didn't do a lot of. I don't think he did it. Maybe he did that one year, but either way, they're going to be practicing 2 times with the Tennessee Titans, which is great. And we have a preseason match with them as well sometime in August. So maybe it's a little bit of more math where he's like, all right, you know what? Get these guys off. We picked up 2 joint practices, something new for the organization and the fans. That could be something pretty cool too. So that's our little news rundown, guys. Let's get to the meat of it, which is our most over and under hyped Seahawks, not just the news of our beloved Seahawks. And remember, we also got some great answers coming from our folks in the Discord and the Ring of Honor. And if you want to be part of that, of course, best, easiest ways, youtube.com/Seahawkers podcast. Like and subscribe there, and go to getintheflock.com on Patreon. Any of those membership levels, you can check them out there. Get into our Discord, get into the Ring of Honor, and then you too can be part of the show like these fine people. So why don't we start with one? Mr. Phil, do you have them in front of you as well? Why don't we
I
go
have
to the
them
flock?
in front. I
Yeah,
have them in front.
Pick one.
And
What
if
do you
you're on
think?
Discord, the very top one, first given, would be the most anticipated. And in fact, have you been on the Discord, Adam, to see these?
I have not.
Okay, so let me
I
see if you
prefer to
get
be
this
kind of
right, Adam.
surprised.
Yeah.
Let me see if you get this right. Car put one in for most underhyped. Any guess who Car picked as the most underhyped Seahawk?
Tyler Lockett.
Yes. Tough guess, right? Of
Yeah.
course you put that in there. A lot of people say he took a step back last year. That's why she's saying he is underhyped. I think there was a tiny step back, so maybe she's attacking me on this one a little bit, or just trying to stick it to me. I still like him. I think he's really good to have on the team, but I don't know that I saw normal Tyler Lockett. Was that Geno's fault? Was that our offensive coordinator's fault? But it was the same coordinator, so I'm not really sure. He dropped passes I'd never seen him drop. He wasn't beating guys deep with that last second super burst he gets sometimes to kind of hold back and break away. So I don't know if it's the O-line and Geno or Tyler. Did you guys think he took a little step back?
Go ahead, Adam. Why don't you take it?
You know, it's hard to say. If he did, it was a tiny one. In really, receivers of all the people on the offense, they are the most downstream of all the problems, right? So whether it was Waldron not finding his groove, or the offensive line never really gelling and staying healthy and being out there, like, it did all just kind of contribute to him, maybe not statistically having his best year, but still, you know, he was out there making big plays and big moments. And I'm not looking at Tyler Lockett as a player that's in decline at this point. And, you know, in terms of being underrated, he seems to be one of those guys that is overlooked and underrated year in and year out by the National Football League at large, right? And the fans. So not a terrible pick by any means. And I know Car just loves Tyler. So why not talk about Tyler a little bit?
What do you think, Clinton? Where do you think it is?
I think it's I did think he took it, step back wise, maybe a little bit. The numbers are what they are. Now they did bring in a legitimate third receiver, which years previous was a little bit different. Marquise Goodwin a couple of years ago did a nice job. But that really wasn't expected. He kind of just came in and was fast, and he then did backflips when we won games, which was lovely. With that, the biggest thing for me was last year with that, you said it, Phil, Tyler just dropped a couple passes that were like big time key moments too. There was a couple of third downs, a couple of things like what you just don't see Tyler drop those passes like in, you know, whatever 8 or 9 year career. It's like, no, this dude catches all of those, and all of a sudden he wasn't. So it was just a little bit of that inconsistency. It could just be some variance, and this year he might just catch them all again, and we're right back to being like, yeah, that's the Tyler we know. For Car, I think it's actually a pretty good pick. Not the ones that I had lined up, but I do agree that he's just kind of under the radar. I don't think it's, I guess underhyped, under the radar could be the same thing, but I think there are nuances to them being different actually. And I just think Tyler at this point in his career is kind of under the radar, and that might be totally cool, which is not a bad thing, right? Because overhype could be a little dangerous sometimes as well. So why don't we go to ours? We're on the underhyped category. So why don't we take it from there? And let's go to Adam first. By the way, we have no idea what we're going to say. So if we have repeats, whatever it is, let's put ours out there. Let's debate, discuss. We'll go around the horn. Adam, who's the most underhyped Seahawk going into, well, will be full training camp in about a month or so?
Yeah, underhyped was a little easier for me than overhyped, to be honest, when I was looking through this, because especially this year, I feel like the hype level kind of surrounding the team is much more tamped down than in years previous with Pete. And just the way with the coaches approach questions about the players and things like that, it's been interesting to see. But as far as underhyped, I think it's Draymond Jones. And the reason it is for me, I thought it was interesting that he ended up restructuring right before the show here too, was I think the big thing for him was he was the big free agent acquisition last year, right? The one that we were like, man, this is going to be a big difference maker up front. And he wasn't bad, but he wasn't that difference maker either. And I think if you talk to him, he would probably say that he's disappointed with his season last year as well. And one of the things about last season is that Clint Hurt and Pete Carroll couldn't get it together on defense. They just couldn't do it. And nothing was working. And I think Draymond suffered as a result. You got to remember, Draymond was an ascending player when he came to Seattle, a young guy that the whole league valued quite a bit. And it was a big coup to bring him in. So I think of all the guys that has like this incredible upside that Coach Mike has the opportunity to bring out, I think Draymond's got to be close to the top of that list. I think he could turn into, Leonard Williams plus, right? Just with a little bit more versatility on the defense and a better defensive scheme that fits him in all of that.
Interesting choice. Mr. Phil, the player that was the $18 million man last year, started inside, actually got bumped, if you will, to the outside when Nwosu went down later in the year. An inconsistent year. It was consistent, but it was underwhelmingly consistent, which is not a great kind of consistent. What do you think of Adam's choice of, hey, this time around, Draymond Jones is quite underhyped?
Yeah, I was bummed about the $1 million a game he was getting and not being a difference maker last year. I think I was speaking to that a number of times in the Discord throughout the year. Like, this guy's getting $1 million a game, and I'm not seeing the difference. Even when he was moved out, like the way they were using him, he definitely was not a Nwosu replacement. That is absolutely for sure. But he wasn't disruptive inside, but maybe with the 3 inside, he was a little small for that. I hope Mike knows how to use him. I expect Mike's going to use him better. I'm just counting on that. I'm probably overly positive on all that I believe Mike can do, but I like this thought of, let's just see which one of these guys is going to be unlocked by Mike, and I hope it's a lot of them. And I do really hope Dre is one of them, because that's going to be awesome for our defense if Adam's right about that.
Yeah, we all want him to be, and with the rotation that we expect and these ideas of the dudes playing literally across the entire line in many different positions, maybe some of that re-unlocks Draymond Jones and his underhype becomes into a pleasant upside in 2024. It should be cool. So, Mr. Phil, how about you? Your most underhyped Seahawk heading into this year?
Well, it's funny because if I had picked offense, I would have picked the same one as Carr for a lifetime achievement of Tyler Lockett. I mean, he's just a lifetime underhyped guy. He's very similar to what Largent did without all the and Largent's my all-time, guy, but without all the accolades, Tyler does so many of the Largent type things and attitude and everything about the man. He's just a treasure for our team, and so that might have been the choice. But I'm going to go somewhere that's probably going to upset some people or maybe not be what's expected. Here's as far as that's going to be later when I get to the overhype. That's going to be later. So, but for this one, underhyped, I'm going to go with what I hope is right. And I think my eyes were not deceiving me. Our defense was pretty bad all year and pretty bad at the end, but there's one guy I really liked. I felt like he was catching on, and I think he's going to kind of fit anywhere, and that's Julian Love. I like how he's playing safety. I think he's got a solid mind on him, so I think he's going to be able to take whatever complicated things Mike gives him. I think he's going to be able to put that on the field and still play fast. He was seeming to figure out where to find the ball in some moments at the end of the year and be in place. I didn't see him make a lot of big mistakes later on in the year. So I'm counting on him just really getting in the classroom with a lot of what Mike offers. And I think we're going to love Julian Love this year. I don't hear a lot of love for him right now, but I think by the end of the year, I think we're really going to love him. Not saying Pro Bowl, but maybe really close, and enough that we're going to be just very happy he's on our team.
So Adam, Rayshon Jenkins had some buzz earlier in the OTA process. Obviously, he's a new kid on the block coming from those Jaguars that just overpaid for their quarterback. Julian Love, high character, high intelligence. What do you think about his hype train as Mr. Phil laid it out?
Yeah, not a guy that we talk a ton about when we're thinking about this new year and things that we're excited about, right? Because that was one of the things that I wanted to kind of focus on in terms of underhyped, right? Like guys that we're not talking about that you're like, hey, maybe we ought to talk about these guys more. And Julian Love is one. And Mike McDonald is right on that same train with Phil, because you've heard him talk a lot about Julian Love. And one of the things that he really likes about him is that he's very poised on the field in his demeanor and that sort of leadership that he can bring to the back into the defense. And that
Love
seems to be
that.
very simpatico with Coach Mike. So I think it's a great pick by Phil as in terms of a guy maybe having a career year. And you also heard Mike talking about how he's excited to be able to move him as well all over the field and be multiple that way, Clinton.
Yeah, love it. So a good one going for sure. I like that we have two defensive guys because I'm about to flip the script here with my most underhyped of the year so far. Guys, for me, this guy is an electric player. This guy, I think, deserves more hype. And I think it'll come if the offense changes in ways that I think it will go. And we can get into all that debate. And Adam, you've been kind of leading the way about like, well, careful what you wish for there. We'll talk about that. But for me, guys, it's Ken Walker. K9 to me is quite underhyped going into this year. If we just rewind the clock and be like, oh, okay, coming out of Michigan State, seeing what the dude did his rookie year, he got very, very little blocking last year. The numbers are what they are across the board, how we ran the ball, how we didn't even try to run the ball on third and short, one of the worst teams in the league when we tried to run the ball on third and short, and we ran a really small volume compared to the rest of the league on third and under 3. That's terrible. And then there's just signs there for me, guys, that he's underhyped, and I believe he shouldn't be. A couple of the big things for me is, number one, Ken Walker can catch the ball. But coming out of Michigan State, he doesn't do that. He doesn't do it because Michigan State didn't ask him to do it. But Ken Walker can catch the ball. Grubb screens it at UW. Grubb screened about 12.5% of the time, which was like double the average, right? Seahawks, one of the worst screening teams for the longest time running, completely different offense, an offense that wants to do, Adam, if Grubb's offense wants to do one thing over and over and over, what do you think Grubb really is trying to do to set players, forth? What do you think that is?
Get first downs.
Well, for sure, but like how? Like Adam, you talk about it a lot. Like it deals with the finesse piece, but what's he trying to actually do?
He likes to get players in space, right? Spread people out and that sort of thing, and work the edges. And I like your pick, Clinton. It was actually going to be my pick, and then I was like, is that a little too chalky? And so thought about it a little bit more and settled on Draymond. I think it's an excellent pick because there is a world here that in Grubb's offense where he likes to run to the perimeter and things like that. That really plays into K9's strengths. And to your point, Clinton, he is a better pass catcher than I think people give him credit for. And I love me some K9 Phil. Like he's easily one of my favorite Seahawks. I don't know about you.
I was actually going to pick K9 because I think it made the most sense. I'm glad Clinton did, but I picked him for our last 3 and 3 out show as an important player, like kind of like the thermometer of how our season is going. I can't remember all the details. I didn't watch my own show, believe it or not, to see what I said, but I had him down for quite a few reasons on the 3 and 3 out. I'm like, I'm not going to do that again. And so I kind of dug a little bit deeper, but this is a great choice. This is probably the top choice, I think, is K9 should be getting hyped a lot more. He could be a fantasy star, which I know Adam doesn't care about, but he could. And he could be, if he's having a good year, we're going to have a lot of fun watching our team this year. So I'm very hyped and hopeful that K9 has a big year.
Yeah, well, glad you guys dig that. And of course, we're always digging this right here. So thank you there to our Ryan 911. We love Ryan. A $9.99 super chat there. Go Hawks, he says. Ryan, you are the live executive producer for now and forevermore. Thank you for everything you do. And of course, he's hanging out in the Discord as well. So before we go over to our overhyped, Mr. Phil, if you can grab that bag of tricks there and pick another one out. Why don't you pick another out from our Discord and share who it was and what they think was person either over or underhyped?
I got some good choices on here. I love this choice by Jay in Alaska. He put a question mark on it, so I don't know how serious he is, but I think it's a serious choice. Jason Myers. No explanation, but Jason Myers. Does he mean Jason Myers is overhyped or underhyped? I think he might mean he's overhyped. I think there was some talk. So like the amount he's getting paid. So the hype and respect that he's getting paid as a kicker. I don't know that Jay in Alaska thinks that that's right, or maybe he's just throwing a rock in, but I'm down. I think he's probably overpaid for what he offers.
Right. And is overpaid and overhyped. Can they be a little different? Yes, it is. But Adam, it is which one? Even year? Either way, it's good year. I don't know.
Yes.
I forget if it's even or odd, but I know it's good year Myers.
This is even year, yeah.
This is even year, good year Myers. So is Myers maybe a bit overhyped, especially if we're paying him the way we are, which is significant money for that position?
Jay in Alaska and I are kind of like-minded here. He was a name that popped into my head when I was doing the exercise, because he kind of gets this reputation of being a really good kicker, and not that he's a bad kicker, but man, there's some moments where you're just like, dude, like really, we just missed that one. Like it just
right.
Top
not
3 money kicker. Is he that? No,
I don't think so.
Right?
Yeah. There's some big moment stuff that hasn't been perfect for him by any stretch. And if you want to put him as the most overhyped Seahawk, I think just by a little bit of the money to performance metric, that part is true. But the other part of it is overhyped. I don't know. I don't know that anybody's like, man, so glad we got Jason Myers. We're totally set there forever. Like we're just not talking about it either. There's not a lot of hype.
Yeah. Good year Myers hopefully just does his good year things, and we could just cruise with him this year. And look, the less you're talking about kickers means that they're just doing their job, right? That'd be a good thing. Last year wasn't the case. Last year he cost us the Rams game. Yes, it's a long kick. Yes, we should have won that game anyway, but he wasn't great last year, and we lost some games because of a kicker, which cardinal sin in the NFL at this point, because kickers could boom the friggin' ball. It's just one thing when you see other teams just routinely drilling 50 plus yarders. No big deal. 52, 55, 54. No big deal. No big deal. No big deal. And ours is still a bit of a coin toss. Although I did see the Patriots last year. I was listening to the bootleg football guys, and they had their summer series where they do like an hour plus on every single team. And they started in the AFC East. So they started with the Patriots. The Patriots, like, field goal percentage last year, I think they said it was like 62% or something like that. It was like college level bad. Yeah, right. It was like college level bad. So they've made their changes there as well. So that he is not. All right. How about this, Mr. Phil? Let's go back to the grab bag one more time, because we think we have 3 more there. So let's go right to the halfway point. We have a most underhyped by Frost, and actually Frost, our Ryan 911 and Frost may have something in common.
Oh, I'm reading it. Okay, sounded like
Yeah,
you had
sure.
it all ready to go, Clint. Okay, most underhyped player is probably Geno. Even a lot of Hawks fans are down on him for whatever reason. Good choice, Frost. I do run across people all the time. They're I don't know about Geno seems to be how conversations start when I walk up and talk to people with my Seahawks hat on.
Still weird for me, Adam, that I don't know if people, I don't know what it is, man. Is it the stigma of the previous decade that it took him that long to become, effective again in the NFL as a starter? This is 2 solid years compiled in a row. Yet I'd say close to 50% of Seahawks fans are like, he's mid at best, and without any recognition that we were a really poor blocking team, and very specifically incredibly poor on third down. But they just don't want to talk about that. They want to point to Dak Prescott's numbers, or like CJ Stroud, rookie year, who played very well, and Dak Prescott can throw the ball over the yard. But what if different show and all, but what if, Adam, we actually gave Geno an upgraded offensive line like Dak has had his entire career?
The strongest part of our entire team last year in terms of what phase of the game was throwing the ball offensively. It was the strongest part of our team. And that's triggered by Geno Smith. Like, he had so little help up front. He gets injured during the year, misses a couple games, and then everybody points to the stats. They're like, oh, they're less than the year before. Well, yeah, he missed a couple games. Like, it's hard for him to put up stats when he isn't in the game, and he's getting killed because he's not getting the proper protection up front. The offense never seemed to mesh. Waldron could never commit to getting a running game going, and it made life tough on Geno Smith. He basically carried the team to being damn close to making the playoffs again this last year, more or less without much help other than with, his receivers. So, man, I have a hard time with guys that are like, I just haven't seen it with Geno. It's like, he led the league in fourth quarter comebacks last year. Like, what more do you want? Clutch, good leader. is accurate and on time with the ball. He can move, and it's cheap. I don't understand.
Yeah.
Phil.
Yeah, we should be pretty hyped about what we're getting for what we're paying and how this fell into our situation. We got all those great picks, which makes our team better by trading Russell, and basically we didn't really take a big step down on quarterback. I am thrilled with our situation at this particular time. I do agree with Frost though. It just happens so much. Everybody's like, yeah, but we just have Geno, so I don't know if we can do much. As if all they kind of do is have this cursory view of the team, and if we're not winning a bunch of games, it's because the quarterback isn't winning. And nobody's paying attention. Did you guys mention it? I don't know, but the defense was atrocious. We had a playoff offense last year. We had an absolute winning offense last year, and the defense lost a ton of games.
Yeah, I think we had a somewhat non-clutch good offense. I know those things don't typically go together, and because our third down struggles were what they were, and that's just. I think with those things can be corrected. And again, as we've talked, I do not pin it on Geno. I think Frost nails a good one there with, for all the reasons we stated, Geno is quite underhyped. And you know what? I'm 1,000% cool with that. And I do want to give some love to there's Ganos there. I would say Ganos because it's like Thanos, I think. He writes, it's so hard to not like Geno. Sociopaths don't like Geno. Well said, Ganos. I agree with that. All right, so let's hop on over to overhyped. I'll take this one first. So overhyped, I agree with you, Adam. It was harder for me, and I wonder if we if all of the three of us gravitated around this guy, or two of us did. But for me, and I love this guy, I'm sticking on the offensive side, just dropping the breadcrumbs, boys, just dropping the breadcrumbs. I love this guy. I was all about it when we drafted him. And for me, I think the most overhyped dude right now is JSN. And the reason being is people just can't shut up about him. Now that could be merited, like they're seeing something on the field, but it's, it's a lot of almost like Collinsworth chortling, like, 7 touchdowns and OTAs. I'm like, all right, guys, pump the brakes a little bit here. There was some interesting Brady Henderson reporting that he said that a bit of JSN struggles last year, besides, having the hand injury early, was that maybe he wasn't actually putting in all the work to get pro ready mentally last year at the beginning. And then he really picked it up and understood what he had to do mentally to study and prepare. And this is coming from Brady Henderson. So it's not like, Joe Schmo on Twitter. It's like, no, this dude is the beat reporter, for the Seahawks from ESPN. So he talks to people, right? So I thought that was interesting. I just think in general, I love the possibilities, and I do believe what JSN will be as a Seahawk, and I think it will begin to emerge this year. However, I do think there's a bit of froth and fervor around him that I'm not sure is warranted just yet. Adam, I think I know how you feel, so I'm going to go to Mr. Phil first. Mr. Phil, what do you think about JSN being maybe a bit overhyped at this point?
Well, it's a lot of the potential. There's a lot to be excited about. And so people love to get excited about potential, because when you have a potential window, now you have this whole area you can put your dreams in there, right? So it's one thing if you've seen it and you can just kind of calculate, here's what it was. But when there's potential, you can now project what you hope. And that's what fans do sometimes. We have two kinds of fans, one that always are expecting the worst, and one that always imagine all the possibilities and expect their team to reach the possibilities. And sometimes they're the most excited during this part of the season because it's possibility season. We don't have actual games. And so when you look at the talent, you look at the college success, it's a little bit like we were talking about with the Jacksonville quarterback. It's like, what a dominant player in college, and we see the glimmers. It's finally going to kick in. Why not pay him $55 million? Well, I like JSN too, but I can see why you said overhyped, because we really don't know if he's going to be all that he seems to be capable of.
Yeah. So instead of list season, Adam, maybe we now call it possibility season. I kind of like that. That's got lots of possibilities. But what first before we go to Mr. Phil for his overhyped, what do you think about JSN as a potential overhyped candidate?
I can totally understand why you went there, and he has been getting a lot of buzz, no doubt about that. But the thing about it is that when he was drafted, the year he was drafted, I was like, man, really wanted to go a different way. And just thinking his fit in the offense with what Pete wanted to do in running the football and everything, and like just being like a third receiver, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Well, now it's Ryan Grubb in his show, and we all know he likes to throw the piss out of the football. Like that's what they did at Washington, dude. And you're hearing a lot of that talk from the players being like, yeah, it's a lot of that sort of thing. So if you're playing in that system and you're throwing the ball all over the yard and there's going to be a zillion targets to go around, I think that maybe the hype is justified for JSN this year. He's a better fit on this team now than he was a year ago, just based on the change in coaching. And I think it does help him in the possibilities for what he can bring to the team this next year.
Love it. We have this is Freaky Friday. We have officially switched positions. I love it. That's what happens in possibility season, is Mr.
Well,
Phil
the facts
called it.
changed, Clinton. The facts changed.
Love it. Following the facts, logic, and reason. All right, so let's keep the hype train going. Mr. Phil, your most overhyped Seahawk going into what will be now training camp.
All right, I hate to bring out the sadness, so I'm glad that I'm not last, but here's this particular guy. It's not like we get the hype like DK because of all that DK is and the excitement, some of the thrilling players, or like think about some of the guys on our defense. I would say Uchenna is underhyped. I'd say Devin Witherspoon is overhyped, but they're both going to be great for us this year. So I'm not going in that area. It's more just every time this guy is mentioned, it's kind of like, oh yeah, that's fine. We're good there. Yeah, we're going to be solid. It's a very important position on our offense. And yet I'm not sure Charles Cross is great. Like I hope he is. And it's not, maybe it's just the guys I'm listening to, but in general, it's kind of, oh yeah. And then we got Charles Cross there. There's the concern level doesn't seem to equate to what I've seen from the player yet. I think it's possible he's going to be just fine. I think it's unlikely he'll ever be great, but it's very possible he can be just fine. It's also possible he never totally gets it. And you watch some things, it's like he's got to fix that. He's got to be better. He's got to be more solid for being a number 9 offensive tackle taken in the draft. That's maybe the reason people think we're fine. Hey, we took a tackle 2 years ago at number 9, so we're totally set at left tackle. I hope that's true, but just kind of like the dismissive way that he is mentioned, I think we need to have a little concern. He's got to step up if this offense is going to be all that it should be.
I think this is a great one. Adam, what do you think?
I don't know how much he really needs to step up. I mean, he's solid. Like, I think that's why people are just like, oh yeah. And then we've got Charles Cross because
solid?
He's solid. I'm not
solid?
saying that he's a world beater, but
no.
He's one of the guys that you can roll out there week in, week out at left tackle, and you're not like terrified he's just going to get tore up by the Bosas of the world every time he goes out there. Sure, he has a bad play now and then. Sure, he's not the strongest left tackle. Sure, he's not the greatest blocking in terms of the run game in that kind of physical nasty part. But again, I think his game fits a little bit better in a Grubb system than it did with what Pete wanted to get done offensively. And whether or not he takes a whole nother step forward, I don't know. I'm kind of with you, Phil. I don't think he's ever going to be, one of those top 2 left tackles that you talk about. But you pick an offensive lineman at tackle at number 9, that's no slam dunk. There's tons of teams like totally whiff when they do that. And it's certainly not a whiff by any stretch of the imagination. It hasn't been amazing, but it's been pretty good, like about like that, Clinton.
Yeah, I think I love that. And I think my perception of it has been that if you're listening to folks that are more like national coverage, they do check the box on him pretty fast, Phil. I think that's, it's like, oh yeah, they got Cross, we're all set. And then if you listen to other Seahawks podcasts that are focused and local, there's certainly more criticism and more looking under the microscope and looking at like, all right, he might have been a bottom 3rd starting left tackle these first 2 years. And of course, the piece of like, and it's his first 2 years.
Cool.
Well, we're going by PFF and the things that are like grading them out. That's where he is. He's like a bottom 3rd starting tackle, which by the way, is a starting tackle in the NFL, not a whiff, right?
Yeah.
And it's 2 years, and it's just 2 years in. So, and his PFF in certain areas actually got better in year 2, where I think if you polled most people, they'd be like, oh, no, he was better year 1. Actually, in many ways, he did progress, but maybe not a huge incline. Plus, he was dealing with the Abe Lucas factor, that Abe was stronger and looked more the part right away. And the best the best ability, Adam, is
Availability, buddy.
yeah, availability. Laken Tomlinson, knock on all the wood we can. He was being interviewed about what, like 9 years now or so, without really, with just being
One
staying.
missed start or something.
One
The
missed
king of
start. So
availability.
yeah, so a very good measure of availability from Laken, which is an interesting addition from the guard factor. We got some comments we're going to go through, of course, that are racking up over here as well, which is great. We do have more from the Discord, but before we get to those, we do have one more from Mr. Adam. So most overhyped Seahawk coming into this year. Adam, who do you got, dude?
TFT guy here. He's got Riq will get benched week 4. That's my hyped player going into the season. Then we had Kale over here as well. I'm to
Nice.
a Riq doubter. His fall off last year was concerning, and they were spoiling my most overhyped player, and it is Riq Woolen. And it's, you talked a little bit, Phil, about the idea of some fans being like, oh, we've got Charles Cross there, check the box. I feel like that's what's happening a lot with Woolen being a starting outside corner for the Seahawks this year. I think there's a distinct possibility that he's not. There's what we saw last year was super concerning in terms of playing half of the position in run defense. Like it was tough to see him out there trying to tackle, or sometimes not even trying to tackle. And some people have pointed to the shoulder injury and said that really was the defining factor, and that's why he wasn't in, getting his nose in the mix and really making hits and trying to be a factor in that part of the game. But it looked more like a want to thing to me more than anything. And it was super alarming. And when you hear Coach Mike talk about what he's looking for out of his players, I'm not sure that Riq Woolen fits that bill. Now, he's had some positive things to say about him and what he can do and all that. And his coverage has been pretty damn good. You can't deny that. And look, Deion Sanders was a corner that was maybe the best to ever do it, and he made business decisions all the time out there in the run game. He wasn't known for his tackling, so maybe Mike can see a version of him like that is a benefit to his defense. But people talking about him like, yep, he's going to be way better and a starting corner for sure. Boy, I don't know. That feels a little overhyped to me, Phil.
You want me next? I could see your point. I mean, you're using the same like setup that I did. It's like we've got our corners, they're set, we're good to go. Yeah, I think there's a big range of outcomes we can have for Riq Woolen this year. He's probably got one of the largest spectrums of, he could be a major disappointment dud, even go the way of Tedrick Thompson, to where it's like, see you bye, to boy, if he gets unlocked and his talent is set in place and they just utilize that right, the talent has a lot. And maybe, Mike can breathe in some fierce mindset versus Pete was a rah, cheer you on. I think Mike might have a little of the look me in the eye and get nasty or get gone type of vibe. And maybe that's all he needs. I'm talking from the hopeful side and the negative side. So sure. I totally see your point. It's the same thing I said with Cross. I think those are a couple players we can't just say, yep, we got that, it's going to be fine. I know they're going to be just great this year. That's kind of what I meant.
What I love about the possibility of a nice bounce back for Woolen, a couple things. Adam, you said it. His coverage was still actually quite good. He was way up there, actually, PFF, and the way they measure things, like to try to take objective things and make them, take subjective things and make them measurable objectively, which is the best we have. So you deal with the data you got. And his coverage grades were pretty darn outstanding, like still pitching quite high. I know Geno Stone played a different position. I get that. But we're talking about the different types of athletes. Riq still running a 4.26 with his length, with the way he kind of glides across the field and his instincts when he does break on the ball, when he's got a little bit of space for himself, right? He has blue chip talent. So Mike McDonald has been very, very strong, seemingly, the body of work we've seen, where he gets the most out of dudes. Sometimes it's a guy that's been, kind of just they call it putting along. Yeah, in an NFL career, no one's putting along, but somebody that's like an okay average player in the NFL, all of a sudden takes this huge jump under McDonald. And those are guys that are like, talented because they're all talented, but not blue chip potential. Riq has the attributes and the characteristics and the pure God-given talent to go out there and do certain things that very few people on earth can do. So I with the confusion they will seek to cause up front, this could be a really kind of cool year where we look back and go, wow, Woolen had 7 interceptions. It wouldn't shock me because of the way that they intend to confuse, and then his make-up ability and his ability to break on the ball. And he's actually a pretty good ball handler too. He could have a huge bounce back year. And if he does that, by the way, Adam, if he does that and he's not tackling, he's tackling okay, but all of a sudden those glory numbers really, those turnover numbers spike up because the defense is doing something new and giving him opportunities. He could see a nice like meteoric rise again, which would be really cool to see.
I love that. He's got to be the most unshockable, right? The player most incapable of shockiness this year has to be Riq Woolen, right? Is there any player more incapable of shockiness on anything that can happen, from bagging groceries to being in the Pro Bowl with Dion interception numbers?
Yeah.
Yeah, he seems like he could be a high variance player this year for sure.
That's a way to put
it. Yeah. Honestly, Clinton, I mean, what you laid out there, I can totally see that happening. And exactly to Phil's point, you can really sell me on a lot of different outcomes for Riq this year, just like you can sell me on a lot of different outcomes for this team this year, depending on how things go forward with the new regime. It's an interesting, fascinating year because of that. And it's fun to be able to sit with you boys and talk about it.
For sure. So we went through our under and overhyped. We got a couple more coming from the Discord, but to recap ours so far, we had Adam with Draymond Jones underhyped. We had Phil with Julian Love underhyped. I had K9 underhyped. Overhyped, I stayed on offense. I went to JSN as being overhyped. Phil had Charles Cross, and Adam had Riq Woolen, which he had some support from the Peanut Gallery with folks chiming in live, which we absolutely love. I know we got 2 more from the Discord. Mr. Phil, hit that grab bag. What do you got?
The last 2 are both from Boye Komova. Okay,
nice.
So he has most overhyped player by fans, and this is probably the most accurate answer. Definitely Bobo. Now, I know a lot of the Bobo, more Bobo. I think it's all in good fun, some of the ways it's spoken of, but yeah, to think he's a star that just doesn't get minutes might be a little bit of overhyping. Before I say a second one, what do you think? Is Bobo the most overhyped by fans?
He's the most loved, and I'm not sure that means most overhyped. And here's why. I don't think he's the most overhyped. And I'll give a quick reason why. Because most loved and most overhyped to me are different things. In limited action, limited patrol, limited chances, he made some of the best, biggest, most clutch plays last year. And he's also the gritty dude who goes out there and blocks incredibly well. So when you mix toe tapping and acrobatics along the line, and then could go out there and block on the edge the way he does and just be kind of gritty and nasty.
Yeah.
And you have the background you had, a dude from Duke, and he's, a UDFA, Chip Kelly's favorite guy ever. And he makes the team. Of course, people are going to be like, yeah, I like that guy. So I don't think he's, if anything, Bobo's underhyped still. Adam, what do you say?
Oh boy, I don't think he's underhyped at all, because with the love comes the hype.
It's just by fans.
Yeah, by fans.
I love it.
You do hear it. People, you should be out there more. You should be starting. Why is JSN even in there? Get more Bobo, right? And look, I can totally understand where people are coming from, because he has produced in his limited sample size here. But with that said, I mean, he does have some physical limitations as a player. I mean, it is what it is. And it'll be interesting to see what they do with him this year. But as far as a solid number 4 on your team, I take Bobo all day. I'm stoked about having him at that position.
I love him. And
go ahead.
He's easily loved. He's easily loved, but I talk to people act like he's basically George Kittle, and he's just getting space blocked by these zippy little talent guys when he should be out there smashing, knocking people up, and making big catches. And I think that's a little far. The love, how it causes people's minds to perceive things in certain ways. I love his grittiness, though. I get why he's loved.
For sure. This is a crowded wide receiver room all of a sudden. I mean, we also brought in Robbie Chosen, right? Robbie Anderson, as he used to be known by, now Robbie Chosen. He just got involved. Laviska Chenault is there. I feel, and D. Eskridge is still there. I feel like we got like 3 or 4 dudes that could be the Marquise Goodwin guy, but not actually the third wide receiver, because now we have JSN. Maybe that's Lockett, but we already have the fourth guy. The fourth guy is Bobo. So now we're talking about having 3 fifth guys that are kind of the gadgety guy. It's crowded. So how that all shakes will be extremely interesting as that plays out throughout the preseason. And I know we have one more before we hit that last one that was also from Boya Kumova. We do have TFT guy. This is an interesting one too. He says for him that the underhyped is Charbonnet. So it's, for me, a bit under the radar and kind of for me, Adam, I'll say this about Charbonnet. This to me was the pick that I could not understand 2 drafts ago at this point. Not because I don't like the talent, not at all that, but because you can still go get your Kenny McIntosh in the 7th. I know he got hurt, but looked pretty darn good before he got hurt, by the way, in the the Seahawks intra scrimmage game, right? That you and Brandon were at, Adam. And of course, you could get dudes like we did for Boise State from the UDFA pile. So when we used another second rounder on Charbonnet, who I think is a nice player, this one, when we needed things like, linebackers, this one was a big head scratcher for me. TFT saying it's underhyped. Adam, what do you think?
It's so funny. This kind of seems to fall fundamentally to where, Clinton, you and I see football differently, because it was that exact draft that I was frustrated with the JSN pick instead of, going for a defensive tackle at that point. And the Charbonnet pick, I was like, oh, good. Now we've got a legit number 2. Like that actually really works for me. You're really stoked about having a third receiver. I'd like a quality backup to the position that maybe gets injured the most in the NFL. I think it's a fantastic pick. I think he's a good player. I don't know that he's going to be a bell cow starting running back in the NFL ever in his career. I think the speed portion of his game is really limiting for him, but a high level backup to spot starter for the majority of his career, he can make a hell of a career doing that and be highly effective and a valuable piece.
Yeah, it was a need pick. It was a need pick. But to me, a second round running back needs to have a lot higher quality. And the reason, Adam, we took JSN at 20 is because Byron Murphy was not on the board. Nothing like Byron Murphy was on the board. And so the best talent
was
was
it
what
that
they
went
picked.
to the Steelers?
And we got Byron Murphy this year.
Oh, well,
I get it.
Yeah, Clancy.
That worked out.
Was it Kalijah Cansey went to Tampa? There was the guy that went to Tampa, the guy that went to Steelers, but I think they both went just before us. Like, I think the Steelers.
Cansey was after our pick, I'm pretty sure.
The Steeler guy also went just a little bit down the road as well, but he's not Byron. Byron Murphy, he is not.
I'll look it up real quick, because that guy was somebody. The name's escaping me, but he was a dude we all really liked.
Cansey that went to Pittsburgh. Pretty sure.
Okay, Cansey would have been possibly. He still isn't Byron Murphy, I don't think. I hope. I don't know. But,
so what? Well,
fine. Pick Byron Murphy again this year and just keep stacking the trenches. I'm fine with it. Like that's not an either or proposition for me.
But I wasn't with Clinton that it was a bad position pick. We needed a good backup running back. He's not talented enough for a second rounder to me. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm one of the ones that's underhyping him and he has all the potential. But when K9 was down, I didn't see the explosive game changing style from. He's more of a guy you can just count on to do the right thing and be part of the play. But nobody's afraid when Charbonnet's back there.
Keanu Benton, that was the Steelers guy.
There it is.
And then and he went in the second round. I think he went just before we picked. I don't have the order right here. And then Tampa Bay, I believe, is Kalijah Cansey, who was just under there.
Okay.
Another really stout dude in the middle that ended up being he's shorter. He's almost like Byron Murphy, not quite as powerful. Murphy, I think, is more powerful, but either way, it seemed to work out. I liked Adam's points today. I know we got that one last one from Boyo Kumaba to get to, and we should. But Adam, I like that you brought up a couple times that seemingly the draft picks are actually almost like shaped for the coaches we ended up getting, which is interesting. Just it's like, like Cross and some of these other players and K9 a couple of years ago, just dudes who perform well in space. And it'll be a very interesting to see, can we pull that off? Because of all the Seahawks podcasts out there, most of them are really rose-colored glasses on, well, this just has to work on offense. And I give you credit for saying, well, what if it doesn't? Like, here's reasons why it might not. And here's some stats on what has happened with previous college coaches trying to bring their scheme to the NFL. Hopefully it's all different. And Grubb is really that true innovator that up levels the league and they go chase him. That's a possible outcome as well, and a really good one for us. But, you've made some really sound points over the last few weeks that might not be the case. So, but let's get to Boyo Komova. We have one more from our Discord. And remember, folks, getintheflock.com so you could become a member of our Discord so you can participate in live shows like this where we're bringing your ideas to the forefront too. A couple of bucks a month gets you in the Discord. You could join the Ring of Honor, and the free stuff, youtube.com/Seahawkers podcast. Like the video, subscribe, drop the comments. They all feed the algorithm gods, which sometimes they love us and sometimes I still can't figure them out. So we just do the content we want to do, and we hope for the best of those algorithms. Mr. Phil, what does Boya Komova got for his second?
All right. It's already been a long show, but this could be a long topic, so we'll have to try to react quickly.
Nice.
He says, I think the most overhyped player by national media is actually Witherspoon. I think he's amazing, don't get me wrong, but he's a sophomore, the one they named the slump after. Playing slightly out of position for a new head coach and DC. I'm not saying he's not amazing. He is. I'm saying let me see 2 years of it before we crown him the new Troy Polamalu. And Adam, I remember last year we did slump or jump. And I don't know if we're going to do that again this summer. We might do our little slump or jump show again. But this could kind of give your thoughts ahead of time as you think about Witherspoon. Do you expect him to reach the hype, or is his overhype going to cause some people to be disappointed this year?
I think he's going to shatter the hype. Like, this is a guy that is just built for this with this coach. He's so freaking made for it. His demeanor and everything that he represents. And heard him talking a little bit about playing in the slot during his presser and just what he liked about it. And it was because he likes to get in there and mix it up, man. He likes to go in there and knock heads. And as long as his body can hold up, I think that the sky's the limit for this dude. And with his aggressive mentality and just his mental acuity for the position, he's going to just thrive in this defense. I hope I'm not jinxing the guy, Clinton, but like I couldn't be higher on Spoon.
There's very few words I could add there. So, and for the sake of that we are over an hour and keeping it shorter, I'll just say, I agree. I don't see him as kind of over or under hyped. I just think like his hype is legit. It's warranted. It's real. And he's earned that hype already in one short year. And I get Boya Komova's points about, let's see it a second year. I can understand that. We just went through it with Woolen this year. With that though, these are different. They're different, even still different types of players. Yeah. One likes to really hit. Remember the play last year where we spun the dude around, like it just his break on the ball, and like you said, Adam, his acuity, his sharpness, and his desire to bring the hat when he can. It's there, and so I think his hype is like perfectly matched, and it is pitching already high. McDonald loves this dude, and he's going to just keep putting him in positions to be a havoc creator out there, and that's perfect for him. Phil, what do you think?
Oh, I think the only thing that'll stop him from just blowing through the hype could be injuries. I mean, he thinks he can take more than maybe his body. Like, I think his brain sometimes writes checks that I'm not sure his body can keep cashing. And so I'm only concerned that he might go the way of, former Indianapolis Colts star
Bob Sanders.
Bob Sanders. I was going to say him before, and then his name escaped me. That's the only concern I have, because he's got all the Bob Sanders mentality. He's got the ability to know what's going to happen before it does. His body's already going there. He doesn't think about it. It's not a question. It's not a decision. Should I do this? No, here's where the play is. I'm exploding to there, and I'm giving my everything to deal with that play. I hope he lasts like Earl Thomas did, because to me, he's that kind of juice, and it did slightly different, but he's that kind of juice, that kind of style. He just knows football in his heart, and he's moving while other people are asking questions and thinking he is moving. It's just, if he's healthy, there's no doubt he's a star.
Yeah, that's the part of it, Phil, is the mental side of it. That's why I think a slump is unlikely for him going into his second year, because he's only learned stuff from his rookie year, and it's not like it's difficult for him to learn. It all makes sense to him. He'll be able to process it, take it to another level.
I will tell you, boys, where we are certainly not slumping. We are not slumping with our flock in the Discord and the Ring of Honor, bringing some great answers today. We are not slumping with the live reactions happening out on YouTube and down the chat here for this live broadcast. This is a fun one. If y'all like what we do, please, again, subscribe, like, and share this with some other 12s because we happen to think that we craft some unique conversations and we take a little bit of pride in that. So when we get to the actual season, we do 5 shows a week that are actually all these unique wrinkles, unique preview shows, unique recap shows. We even have a gambling show, and that's a lot of fun too. And it's just about the Seahawks, by the way. It's a ton of fun. So if you like unique Seahawks content for the psychopaths that we are with this team, and I mean that in a really affectionate, good way, then help spread the Hawk. And boys, I think with that,
There's only one thing
left to say.
Hey, say it twice. It's just as nice, right? Go Hawks.
Then there's 3 things
Hawks.
left to say at that point, Clinton. You say it too. Then there's 3 things left to say, and that's go Hawks.
Right.
Phil,
Go Hawks. Go Hawks.
And then we'll go Hawks.
Yes.
perfect.
I'll say it a lot. You can't say go
All right,
Hawks
boys.
too much.
No,
Can't.
you can't.
Mathematically correct. Go Hawks.